This is a massive get woke, go broke story. For those that aren't familiar with the controversy at Oberlin College and the woke protests, basically what happened was 3 students who were black were caught shoplifting. The bakery, which has been around since the 1800s, caught them and called the police and were accused of racial profiling and being racist, bigots, all of that. Protests ensued, and apparently people from the college were participating in spreading disinformation and libel. A lawsuit ensued in which we are now learning. Verdict. Jury awards Gibson's Bakery $11 million against Oberlin College. There's a lot to go through here. We're going to talk about, for one, we've got the get woke, go broke situation. Oberlin, notoriously, woke college, university. They're going to lose $11 million, but it's not over yet. Punitive damages have not yet been calculated, which could potentially, my understanding is, be up to $33 million. There's also some of the other, the context and the history of this that I want to talk about, and how the defense tried smearing the college. It would, in my opinion, dealing with legal matters, I'll make sure that's clear. So let's read through the story. Legal Insurrection writes, the punitive damage phase to start next Tuesday, which could increase the damages to $33 million. So let me just stress, you thought $11 million was bad for Oberlin. It could triple. Now, before we get started, because of the precarious nature that we're in right now with the great YouTube war about to begin, go to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work, because what you do when you support me through PayPal, crypto, physical, it's a safety net, right? If my channel gets purged in the coming war, yes, for those that aren't familiar, there is a coming war. Big YouTubers are now starting to speak up. I rely on, knowing that I have many people like you supporting my channel. So as we're talking about issues pertaining to the woke left, lawsuits and destruction and protests, it's important to point out. But liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing really, really helps. So let's just read the story. There's a lot here. The jury in the Gibson Bakery versus Oberlin College case has reached a verdict. According to our reporter in the courtroom, the jury awarded $11 million. Here are the details. Alan W. Gibson was awarded $3 million. David Gibson, 5.8. The Gibson Bros, $2,274,500. Next Tuesday, there will be a separate punitive damages, which could be a double reward, up to 30, which I stress, okay. Judge John Maraldi reading jury verdict photo, and there's a photo here, he's reading the verdict. They say, Meredith Raimondo was held liable on the libel and interference with business relations, but not intentional infliction of emotional distress. By stipulation, the college is responsible for any amounts awarded against her, so she will not pay anything out of pocket. We followed the case from the start of the protests through the lawsuit process and now trial. Here's my statement. The verdict sends a strong message that colleges and universities cannot simply wind up and set loose student social justice warriors and then wash their hands of the consequences. In this case, a wholly innocent fifth-generation bakery was falsely accused of being racist and having a history racial profiling after stopping 3 black Oberlin College students from shoplifting. The students eventually pleaded guilty, but not before large protests and boycotts intended to destroy the bakery and defame the owners. The jury appears to have accepted that Oberlin College facilitated the wrongful conduct against the bakery. You want to know what really grinds my gears? Apparently, according to Legal Insurrection, one of the aspects of the defense was that these people didn't deserve money because their bakery was only worth $35,000. They argued that the bakery was worth millions, I believe like 5 million plus. The bakery, I believe, was opened in like 1885. We'll get to that point. I'll probably read where they mention it. But in the 1800s. What I can see from this is something really interesting, especially as another throwback to Jonathan Haidt's research about the moral foundations of humans. Liberals only care about care and fairness, whereas conservatives use all 5 moral foundations. Libertarians, this is actually kind of funny because libertarians only use one, liberty. Seriously, their only moral foundation is, am I free to do what I want without harming others? So it's interesting. But the reason why I bring this up is that when I hear that there is a bakery in a neighborhood that's been there since the 1800s, that gives me a feeling, I can't really describe it, but I view it as kind of the sanctity moral foundation, the importance of something that has survived to this day, that has lived longer than a human. This bakery is older than people. It's an institution that represents the triumphs and success of humans and progress and development. When I see stories about people desecrating history and destroying ruins, I get infuriated by it. But you can see how the defense played this, saying the bakery is worthless, because the only thing they looked at were the hard numbers. How much money do they make? Okay, they're only worth $35,000. No. There is a historical value, a human value, a cultural value that extends far beyond you claiming it's only worth $35,000. It's why art is so expensive. Not all art, but it's why a lot of art can be very expensive. And it's why we have museums. Because at least there are some of us that recognize value exists beyond how much you can generate from selling a biscuit. The value of this business is that it's a long-standing institution that serves the community and has extended beyond the lives of those who started it. This bakery was a tree planted by someone whose shade they knew they would never sit in. And their children today can sell goods and service the community even though they didn't plant that tree. They've watered it through several generations. And they argued that was worth only $35,000. Absolutely not. I'm disgusted by that. They say, and I think that actually played out really bad for the defense. So they bring it up. As previously noted, I was amazed at the tone-deaf and demeaning approach of Oberlin College to this family business. Oberlin College claimed the bakery was worth only $35,000, less than one semester at Oberlin. I'm still shaking my head at the tone-deafness of the defense in belittling this family business, which has sustained 5 generations of Gibsons, and at the time of the protest sustained 3 generations. 90-year-old Alan Gibson, his son David, and his grandson Alan D. Gibson. There also were almost a dozen employees. After the protests, the Gibsons stopped taking salaries, and most of the employees had been laid off. This is a real life to these people. To say the business was only worth $35,000 erases the lives of these people. Maybe it's just the plaintiff's lawyer in me coming out, but I'd cross-examine this defense expert and college president and show in closing argument that the tuition, room and board charges at Oberlin College, this business, which has been an important feature of the community since 1885, is worth less than one semester at Oberlin College? A business that has stood through multiple wars, through World War I and World War II, providing service to this community, that provided jobs to more than almost a dozen employees, that provided a livelihood to these people, was smeared by woke activists who found no value in the service they provided. Make no mistake, these people are insane, and these people, specifically, evil. Let me tell you what I mean by that. They have reckless disregard for other human beings. It's sociopathic. You are not talking about care and fairness when you destroy the lives, or try to, in this case, you lost. When you try to destroy the lives of a family business for political aims, for your personal ideology, you're evil. You're quite literally evil. Now, from a philosophical standpoint, I'm not one to be, I don't typically take the philosophical approach that good and evil actually exist. This is just my opinion on whether or not someone is self-interested or selfless. A lot of people can define evil in other ways. Some people view depravity. And you could argue they're depraved and just trying to cause destruction to people. And I certainly know many woke, Antifa types who have told me to my face they just want to watch the world burn. I'm not kidding. I mean this seriously. I'm not going to name this particular individual, but they're a high-profile journalist who said they just write these stories because they want to watch it burn and it's fun. They exist. Certainly they exist on the right. I'm not trying to single any tribe out here. I'm trying to make a point about these people don't care that they were destroying the lives of this family that has served the community and done nothing wrong. They don't care. They don't empathize with other humans. And thus, they are, in my view, evil. When I look at this family, and when I look at these protesters, I think to myself, how can I make sure I can provide care, fairness to all, and protect, the innocent, and bring about justice? Real justice. Were these people racially profiled? I want to find out. Okay, turns out they weren't. There's evidence to suggest apparently they pled guilty. Boom, we're done. Instead, the college retaliates, supporting protesters to come and destroy this business because they won't settle for nothing, because they don't care about hurting people. They wanted to hurt these people. Thank God, at least still today, we have the common law institutions we have, and the judge read the verdict, and this bakery won. And I hope to God they win more in punitive damages. You cannot you cannot act with such reckless disregard to destroy the lives of people. These people disgust me. The case is bigger than just this case and reflects higher education's disconnect from the lives of most Americans. Quote, first, I think these quotes are coming from the lawyer who writes this. First, from the start of this case, I have questioned the aggressive and demeaning attacks on the Gibsons as a defense strategy. There is no evidence that the Gibsons did anything wrong, unless you consider stopping people from stealing something wrong. That lawful act of protecting one's property nonetheless has devastated a 5-generation business because of Oberlin College racial politics. Gibson's Bakery survived 2 world wars. I like how I'm saying my opinions and then reading through it and they say the same thing. The Depression, that's huge. The turmoil of the 1960s and the so-called Great Recession. But it may not survive Oberlin College's social justice warriors and their faculty and administrative enablers. If the jury understands this, the other pieces of the case fall into line factually and legally. Second, I never cease to be amazed at the arrogance of the college community as reflected in the defense that Gibson's Bakery was close to worthless. It's the arrogance of the credentialed, a business that is in its 5th generation and that currently supports 3 of those generations is something of value. A business that employed almost a dozen local employees prior to this incident is something to value. Ultimately, the jury will have to put a monetary value on the dramatic drop in business and the loss of reputation of the individuals. But to demean the business the way it was done is maddening. Scott Wargo, spokesman for Oberlin College, provided the following comment in response to my inquiry. The college does not have a comment. In an email, I don't want to just read through it because they just essentially say, we're disappointed with the outcome and, we provided evidence. Our team will review the jury's verdict and determine how to move forward. And then we have the official reporting, but I think you guys get the point. There's still some more issues to go through, and there's a ton of reporting through legal insurrection. Really, really impressive stuff. I agree with a lot of the opinions put here. I'm not entirely sure who the quotes are coming from. I think it's from the writer himself, William A. Jacobson, but I just want to stress, there's this older story from May 30th, so it's just this past week, where they actually, in day 12 of the trial, argued it was worthless, less than 1 semester at Oberlin. And they actually tallied the total tuition, room, board, and fees is $73,000. They think that this bakery that withstood World War I, World War II, and the Great Depression was worth half of one of their semesters. These people are sociopaths with no understanding of the importance of history. And as the saying goes, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. It's one of the reasons why I personally find such value in history, in just the idea of history, relics, artifacts, businesses. I'm not the only one who feels that way. Certainly conservatives do, but many liberals do as well. There are posts that go viral on Reddit talking about a pub in Ireland that's existed since the 1900s, and they found in the walls the old mud that was used to craft the hut back then. That's incredible. And it's like looking into the past to understand where we come from and how far we've gone. This is deeply insulting to anybody who cares about humanity and progress. This bakery has stood through such turmoil. And I think what we see here with the protests, with the accusations of racial profiling, is the complete disdain and disregard for our long-standing institutions. Think about what the activists say. They're going to accuse this of, they say it's a white supremacist bakery, all that other nonsense. They call them racist, racial profiling since 1885. And they'll use that and say, see, they've been around that long. They've been around since the era of Jim Crow, blah, blah, blah. They will accuse them of having the sins of their father. But no. What Gibson shows us is progress. A business that was started in an era of separation, segregation, racism, that stood through all of these great tumultuous times, the world wars, the depression, and now enters an era where we have made tremendous progress in expanding civil rights. To me, that is a monument of the work that we've done that shows why our legal system, our law, our constitution have been amazing. Not perfect, but damn near close. They have helped craft a world where civil rights are extended to all, where we protect we protect people from discrimination, and because of that, because of their success, they are now being accused of being the worst of the worst when it is far from the truth. So I'll end by saying this: bravo, spot on, $11 million awarded. That's a lot of money. It may not save the bakery, But I'll tell you what, I do not believe their operating costs are going to be anywhere close to that per year. So at least they can survive a few years, and maybe, just maybe, either everything comes to an extreme turning point in conflict and violence, or things calm down. Unfortunately, I lean towards conflict coming. I really do. Especially when you see, I made reference in the beginning to the Great War on YouTube is coming, because now we're seeing, Keemstar tweeting that he spoke with over 100 of the top YouTubers who said they're going to get on board. There's going to be a major conflict. We're in it already. So let me stress this too. The things we're seeing with Gibsons are battles in the bigger war. It doesn't mean it'll stop here. It doesn't mean it will get better. It doesn't mean it will get worse. But we're seeing these things happen over and over again. The attack on Gibsons was like a skirmish between ideologues who have reckless disregard for the well-being of others, trying to destroy a business who did nothing wrong, just to win it. This could lead to actual physical violence, which you've already seen over and over again. And it could lead to actual bigger scale violence, police crackdowns, and just, I believe we're heading in that direction. Who knows where we go? But ultimately, the point I like making in regards to the culture war that I think I should stress right now is history is condensed when you read it. And I've made this point before in older videos, so I'll tell it to anybody who hasn't heard this. History is condensed. When we read about the Civil War, World War II, you read these things where it's like, in April of, 1836, X happened, and then July of 1841, this happened. And you're reading these key points, the highlights of history, not realizing that most days are boring and nothing happened. This story, which came out yesterday, is a key moment, a key victory for a long-standing institution. And when you read about these stories, you will see all of this news condensed, not realizing that in between these stories, a whole lot of nothing was happening. These protests happened, a year, 2 years ago or something like that. The point I'm trying to say is, in 50 years, when they look back on everything happening today, for all we know, the culture war or the second civil war or whatever started with Gamergate. They're going to say, oh, the Civil War started when, activists infiltrated media organizations in the early 2010s, spreading propaganda and attacking institutions, which led to an escalation. A lot of people didn't see it when it happened. Sure, certainly the gamers saw it. But I believe it very much will be the case that in 50 to 100 years, we'll look back on history and they'll have a thing about the Great Culture War or the Second Civil War, whatever it turns into, where they say it began at this moment. For all we know, it began in 2006. But when you're living in it, you have to recognize that a lot of these moments in history, like they say the shot heard around the world for the revolution, how many people actually knew that happened in the first month of the news going out? Those people were living their day-to-day lives, not realizing they were in a historical period. This is a major victory, but I'll leave it there. I don't know what else to say other than I think things are going to get worse. But this is at least good news that our legal system can work in these regards. So thanks for hanging out. Stick around. More segments to come. Next story will be at 1 p.m. on this channel. For those in the podcast, the arrangement will be very different. But I will see you in the next story.